Alright, so a while ago now, I made a video talking about the Resident Evil 3 remake, Jill, and how people weren't a fan of it. And the comments were interesting, to say the least. There was a mixed bag of opinions. Some people said they liked the character, and how they redid the character was really well done, and it was like the best part of the remake. And the other side of the coin, people were saying, you know, she was terrible, and the character was ruined, and you can check the comments on the video for yourself if you want to see. There's a lot in there that kind of really do flip the coin every now and again with hate and love for the character, but either way, with making that video, it turns out that that's also the case for Leon in the 4 remake, and I think this one is a bit more widespread because of how popular the original 4 is, and obviously how popular the 4 remake is. And I do want to kind of go over it again today for Leon, and again I think this one's more widespread because just again how popular the Resident Evil 4 games are. So yeah, let's just go for it and see what happens this time around. First of all, I want to say this now, because I had people commenting on it in the last video about Jill. I'm not saying these things, okay? I will leave my thoughts about both versions of Leon in this video, but the things I'm saying aren't things I think, they're things that people have said about the characters. So I'll leave my thoughts at the end, but until then, this is stuff that I've seen online, so keep that in mind. So let's start with the original Leon, okay? So Resident Evil 4, the original game, I always like to consider Resident Evil 4 as like this really B-movie style horror game, okay? It's cheesy, it's action-packed, there's one-liners all over the place, the characters are kind of flirtatious and stuff like that. It's a fun game, okay? It's a fun game. And I have a lot of love for it, because I think Resident Evil 4, the original Resident Evil 4, is a really well-made game. And it was, you know, a big thing at the time, and I can appreciate, like, pretty much every aspect of the game. Leon in that game is great. There's no denying he's great. Like the lines he comes out with, the ways he interacts with characters, and he's got that cool factor. It's all there, and it's all really well done. That is a trend that it didn't really stick throughout the rest of the games. I think 5 and 6 also have like the cheesy moments and the dialogue and the things that happen. It's all a bit over the top, and there's plenty of examples you can go at for those games. I really do think that was a thing at the time, but 4, the original 4, it was just a blast. It's a fun game to play, and it feels like it makes sense for the game, you know, because of the tone of it and the characters, how they interact with each other. It feels like a good time, and it's also a really good game, so that's a bonus. But with the remake, this is where the complaints come in about the remake, and it's always the remake, it's never the original. So as you know, if you haven't played any of the remakes by now, of whether that be 2, 3 or 4, there's a tonal shift in those games, okay? I think 2 is probably the closest to the original because of the events of the game, but especially with 3 and especially 4, there's a tonal shift. There's a change in the characters, how they behave. There's a change in pretty much everything with them. So obviously Leon in the 4 remake is a lot more serious, okay? He's taken it a little bit more seriously. He does still have like the wisecrack one-liner jokes throughout the game, and I think a lot of that side of the game does kind of go into Luis's character for the remake, and they try and keep Leon a bit more serious. That being said, it's not completely serious. There's always something he says that just makes me laugh every time I play the remake. But yeah, I think for the most part, him, Ashley, Ada, they're all a lot more serious in this game, and that's where a lot of complaints stem. I've seen people say that he just doesn't want to be there, and you know that he's not taking it as seriously, which I think is completely the opposite to how he actually is in the remake. I think he's taking it a lot more seriously in the remake compared to the original, honestly. At the end of the day, you've got to think, they're reshifting the lore, they're retoning the games, and he mentions it multiple times throughout the remake that he constantly thinks about what happened in RE2, the outbreak in Raccoon City, and how he couldn't save anybody. And again, that makes sense with his character. You know, he's a police officer, well, was a police officer, and he couldn't do anything to save anybody, and he still thinks about it. And even throughout the game, you know, he's absolutely dedicated to saving Ashley, even to the point where he's almost dying, and you know, he still manages to save her because he doesn't want what happened before to happen again. He pretty much says that line throughout the game. You know, he can't let it happen again. It has to be different this time. He says something like that. And yeah, he's a lot more serious this time around. I think a lot of the main complaints for Leon's character stem more towards the relationship between him and Ada. Obviously, everybody thinks that, you know, there is some chemistry between Leon and Ada as characters, and I do agree. I think it's still there in the remakes. I think it's a lot more toned down, which honestly I do have issue with a little bit. I do kind of agree with that sort of thing, and so I think, you know, there are characters that definitely kind of, you know, have that connection. I think Leon and Ada is definitely the preferred one to me over Leon and Claire. I think Leon and Claire is just silly, but Leon and Ada makes more sense, especially because they always seem to run into each other and stuff like that, so I think it's inevitable. But anyway, that's beside the point. Yeah, their relationship in this game is toned down, not as flirtatious, they're a lot more serious with each other, and honestly a bit more cold towards each other. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Again, they're both there doing completely different things, and there are moments when they talk and when they interact that you can see that they're still kind of into each other, I suppose. But yeah, it's definitely not as in your face as it was in the original game. In terms of like the whole wisecracking and kind of like the snarky comments and stuff like that he says in the original game, again, I really do think that's a thing at the time. I really do think at that time of like video games in general, the main characters are always like these kind of cocky, kind of or-agey characters that were just present at the time. I think it was just a thing of that era. And again, with the original game, it makes sense. It fits the game. The game's very fun. It's very kind of, again, I mentioned at the very start, it's a very B-movie feeling game, and it all works very well. But you can't, they can't make the 2 and the 3 remake like these serious, more grounded type games, and then have 4 go back to like the cheesy, snarky version that he is in the original game. It wouldn't make sense. It would be kind of a bit off-putting, just because it would be so out of place with the current tone of the games. And again, I don't think all of the cheesiness is gone, and that doesn't even include Resident Evil 4. You know, if you look at Resident Evil 7, Resident Evil 8, 2, 3 remakes, there's still those goofy ass lines in there, and there's still some goofy shit that happens in there, because if you're trying, they can make it grounded, they can make it gritty, they can make it kind of a bit more dark, but at the end of the day, with Resident Evil games, if you're going for like realism, it just isn't going to work, because it's a zombie game. You know, it's a zombie game where you fight all kinds of mutations of monsters, and over the top shit happens in every single game, regardless of how serious the game is. You know, if you look at 7, very serious game, and you have chainsaw fights, you pretty much go through like a Saw-esque game show that one of the residents of this house have made, and it's not something that has to be taken completely seriously, and I do kind of agree with that. Like, not everything has to be super serious, but I think the characters needed to change just to fit the tone of like the modern games, and again, with the remakes being like the new canon, having the originals be part of that would be, again, it would be a bit of a swing in tone. But yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for the video. Honestly, I like Leon in both games. That's my opinion. I think both games work really well with their version of the character, and I don't understand the hate towards the remake version of any of the characters. And believe me, there's more characters people don't like in remakes either, and we'll get to that at some point. But yeah, leave your thoughts on Remake Leon down in the comments below. As always, guys, thank you for watching. I'll catch you in the next one.